when I was requested to come and join this panel, I shouldn't say that I had some hesitation, but I had to make it very clear upfront that I'm neither a doctor, I don't have any PhD, I'm not an economist, though more than 50 years ago I studied economics, I taught economics. I am a quintessential generalist administrator. I am not diffident of saying that I'm not a specialist, but I'm a generalist. I'm like ordinary citizen of India who had some exposure to some aspects of fiscal administration of this country. And with that background, I'm going to talk a little bit on this subject of debt management and related issues, which, though it is a part of overall fiscal management, it has impact or it impinges on monetary policy, and also combined effect of monetary policy and fiscal policy has its effect on macro policy. I would like to talk a bit on those aspects. I'd like to add a little more, if you permit me, that my first exposure to public debt, except that as a student I have read, and also when I started teaching postgraduate class in the economics department, as a young lecturer, I was assigned the subject of public finance and statistics. So that time I had some exposure to public finance, including public debt, and we used to depend heavily on Musgrave's book on public finance. That was my first exposure to debt. Then in the process of bureaucratic posting in Delhi, I was posted in an organization which was a very obscure organization until Professor Surjit Bhalla highlighted that organization to prove that there has been employment generation in the country in the last 4 years. I was the head of the Employees Provident Fund organization, which has been providing data regarding new job creation, if I may say so, in the organized sector, based upon which Professor Bhalla has been writing about the employment generation. At that time also, because of strict control of the finance ministry and the other labor ministry on investment of the employees' provident funds, large amount of our funds used to be invested in government securities, state government securities, central government securities, plus some special deposit accounts in the banks and all that. That was further exposure to the bond market. But I didn't know much about the nitty-gritty of how the bond market functions. But I knew that our provident fund, or rather employees' social security fund, gets invested in the bond market. Later on, after retirement, when I had an opportunity to head the pension reforms committee set up by the government of India, though many of our recommendations were not fully accepted by the government of India, as normally they should not. But some recommendations regarding the investment pattern of the pension fund to be controlled by the Pension Fund Regulatory Development Authority that have been accepted. That also talks about investment in the bond market and with some window given to investment equity, etc., etc. As a finance secretary of the state government, of course, we were floating state government bonds. My only contribution was, and the Reserve Bank of India used to take care of everything, whether it is Bihar government bonds or Karnataka government bonds. Karnataka government used to claim at that time, even Reserve Bank of India also accepted that we are one of the better fiscally managed states. But let us say some other state which is not so well managed. Reserve Bank of India will ensure that all the bonds are picked up by the commercial banks. They used to just make some phone calls and all that. It is to be picked up. There is no problem of selling those bonds. Later on, I find now Government of India's auction of bonds are also being postponed because the market is not picking up those bonds and all that. That problem was not there in the somewhat more regulated regime of the 1990s. Be that as it may, the point that I mentioned earlier is that difficult to have a purely independent monetary policy, because if you believe in Walras, general equilibrium and all that, there cannot be anything independent in this economic world. All are related to each other. And I think Schumpeter wrote somewhere that you cannot move a star without moving the whole universe, something like that. If you touch monetary policy, it will have impact on, if you touch fiscal policy, it will have impact on monetary policy, it will have impact on money supply, interest rate, market prices, consumption, investment, employment, unemployment, and all these factors have to be taken into account by anybody who decides monetary policy. So this kind of complete independence is really not feasible. There will always be some gray area between management of monetary policy and fiscal policy, which includes debt management policy. I mean, that is my layman's understanding of the subject. Coming now to this impact of fiscal policy or debt management policy on the macro indicators like consumption, investment, inflation, prices, etc. Now we are hearing the expression Ricardian equivalence. Now, when I was a postgraduate student, in our history of economic analysis, 50% of the paper was allocated to Ricardo, Wicksell, and Marx. Remaining 50% was the entire history of economic analysis from the Greek days or Kautilya's days to modern days. So we had read a little bit of Ricardo. Schaffer's book had come into the market. We had not heard of Ricardian equivalence. After seeing Ricardian equivalence, I brushed up my Schumpeter copy. I still have a copy. Hardly any reference to Ricardian equivalence. Then I discovered that is the creation of Barrow and the other gentleman who wrote that article in 1974, or Buchanan. Buchanan and Barrow. These are the exponent of rational expectation school, new Keynesian theory, etc., which were not there when we studied economics. They said that taxation or incurring debt for public expenditure will have the same effect if or because the individual agents, economic agents, will have perfect foresight. They will guess how much taxes will be increased in future, and they will accordingly decide what is their consumption, what is their investment. So between taxes and debt, there is no difference. Basically, this was to disprove Keynesian theory. Incidentally, Buchanan was the chairman of what is called the Mont Pelerin Society, set up by Friedrich Hayek. I mean, I have no quarrel with them because I don't know enough economics, but they were set up to establish the superiority of what is known as the classical liberal economic theory vis-a-vis the interventionist economics of John Maynard Keynes. So they dug up some reference in Ricardo to prove this Ricardian hypothesis or Ricardian equivalence. But Ricardo himself never believed in Ricardian equivalence. I have found a reference to a book by Nancy MacLean. The book is called, no, this is not Nancy MacLean. I'll give the reference later, which deals entirely with this Ricardian equivalence and says that Ricardo himself said, if this happens, then there will be equivalence, but it is not perfect foresight, is not likely to happen. So Ricardo himself was a believer in non-equivalence. Very, very clearly, Ricardo was against accumulation of public debt. He wrote his books and articles around 1817 on this subject. Immediately after the Napoleonic Wars, France was heavily in debt. England was in debt. And if I remember correctly, public debt in England at that time definitely exceeded 100% of GDP. Probably it was some point of time twice the GDP. So Ricardo was very keen on reducing the debt burden, and he was also a member of parliament. Incidentally, he made a lot of money in the bond market. He became a landowner. He became a member of parliament. And he saw the behavior of the member of parliament in England those days. If he had seen our members of parliament, he might have had the same view. He said that these people all waste government money. If you have sinking fund for public debt redemption, they will take out that money and spend it on some useless public expenditure. So reduce debt, but don't create a sinking fund. They will have an eye on that. You have a heavy taxation, and clear this debt. And after that, try to minimize your debt, try to live within your means, etc., etc. In any case, I'll leave Ricardo for the moment and say that domestic debt has been a major concern not only in England and France, but in our country like India, from the 80s onwards at least. Incidentally, I was reading some Indian political thought or economic thought history, not merely Kautilya, but Shukraniti. In Shukraniti, the advice to the king is that you must save 1/6 of your revenue and create a reserve fund. Now, reserve fund is gone. Debt in most of the countries now exceeds 40%, 50%, 60%, some countries, some period of time, 100%. So this has been a concern here. And in India also, recently, the Encassing Committee review of the FRBM Act, he has suggested that our debt GDP ratio should be brought down from 69% to 60% within next 4 or 5 years or something. I saw some other IMF recommendation, a little older, which says that developed countries may afford to have just 60%, the outer limit, but developing or emerging countries should try to bring down their debt GDP ratio to 40%. Of course, there is no rule under which there is no maximization rule that there is a function and you maximize it and comes to value of 60 or 40 or something. But it is some average based upon past experience and all that. If you exceed 60%, you are in trouble. If you are a developing country with a low tax base, if you exceed 40%, you are in trouble. There is no mathematical formula for deciding what is optimum level of tax GDP ratio. But by and large, 60%, and Encassing has said you try to achieve that. Maybe next review committee will say, try to reduce it further to 50%, something like that. Now, insofar as this effect of debt on consumption investment, prices, unemployment, employment. There are a lot of studies, and most of the studies results which I have seen, including article by, I forget his name, Balakrishnan, something. Probably there's another lady who has recently written a book, Lekha Chakraborty, from the NIPFP. Which was reviewed in the EPW more or less at the same time when Dr. Charan Singh published his article about reducing interest burden. This this review was by Surajit Das. He is of GNU, or Lekha Chakraborty is from NIPFP, and of course Dr. Charan Singh is from IIM, Reserve Bank, etc., etc. They do not find very much evidence regarding the impact of debt on consumption, on prices, on growth. But I saw again some other article prepared by the Government of India. They prepared a status report on debt, where I think there's reference to positive correlation between public debt and growth up to a certain point, but after that it started going down. In any case, whether this econometric analysis shows the results of this correlation or not, the fact is that if your debt is too high, the Moody's nowadays, who does all this country rating and all that, they will give you a non-investment grade rating. In the open economy, the FDI, FPI will start going out and all that. The opposition will shout at the Prime Minister and the Finance Minister, "Kya ho gaya? Achhe din nahi aaya, money is going out," and all that. So every country is quite concerned about high level of debt. So how we should, NK has given a suggestion, you should reduce it. How we should reduce it, etc., is matter for further discussion. I would like to take 2 more minutes about this subnational debt. I have already mentioned earlier that those days when I was the finance secretary, Government of India will say your allocation for bond market raising of funds is say 500 crores. And the Reserve Bank of India would phone me one day, "Sir, we are issuing the Karnataka government bonds. Please phone Chairman Canada Bank, Syndicate Bank." Chiranjeev also must have received some phone calls like this. I don't know, by that time things might have been different. So they used to pick up our bonds. But now, as I mentioned earlier, I find the bonds are being auctioned. Probably, I'm not very sure what is the current status. These state government bonds are also being assessed by the credit rating agencies, so that while one state government bond may give a yield of 8%, another state government bond can give a yield of 9% or 10% or something. And some state governments which do not manage their fiscal affairs very carefully, they may have problem in getting their bonds lifted by the market. The latest I saw was that existing state government bond holding by the banks will be subject to, again, market evaluation, what we call mark-to-market evaluation. And that will mean that earlier there was some fixed formula for the valuation of state government bonds linked with GSEC. It will no longer be so. So suddenly the banks will find that what they consider to be worth 1 billion rupees has suddenly depreciated to 1 billion is how much? 100 crores. It is gone down to 100 crores. 1,000 crores, 1 billion. 100 crores. What they thought 100 crores has now been reduced to 80 crores. So their NPA will go up, their provisioning will go up. Again, that will have effect on market. Money will not be available. There will be real crowding out or whatever you call it. So this will also create further problem. So I would like the House and the panelists to throw some light on this subject. Thank you very much.